Good morning, dear students. Welcome to another session of digital communication. So in previous session, we started with the discussion of the digital communication aspects. So in which we came across few general concepts as to what is meant by analog signal, what is meant by digital signal, what is the difference between analog, discrete, and digital. Then what is a baseband signal, then bandpass signal. Then we discussed regarding band limited and low pass signals. Then we discussed one of the important concepts related to sampling. So what is meant by sampling? So how do I convert analog signal? Actually, when we pass it through a sampling, we'll be passing an analog signal, and once we process it through sampling, we'll be getting a discrete signal. Once we pass the discrete signal to the quantizer, when we pass it through the quantizer, we'll be getting a digital signal. So wherein analog is in your continuous representation, whereas digital signal is in represented in zeros and ones. So that is this is how it will be represented. So that discussion we had yesterday. The same thing we have specified over here. Analog signal passed through sampling, you'll be getting a discrete signal, which is say x of n. Then once you pass it through quantization, what quantizer does is it takes the samples. So discrete signals are nothing but the samples of this analog signal. So it takes each of the samples, and for each sample, it will be assigning zeros and ones. So this is what we had discussed yesterday. Okay. So as and when these concepts, if they come into play, right, again, we'll be discussing these things in detail. At present, just I'm giving the overview. And yesterday we saw one, we were able to see a MATLAB code. So wherein I just showed you the display that when we have a sine signal, when we sample it, when we do the undersampling, what happens, oversampling, what happens, and when we do the critical sampling, what happens. So that is what we had discussed yesterday. So in communication lab, you have pulse code modulation, right? During that time, again, I'll be discussing that, and I'll be sharing the same information with you all later. So at present, I'll not be going for MATLAB. This thing directly, I'll just go to the rest of the part. Okay, wherein I had left. So yesterday we had done up to this point. So today I will be starting off with the next part, that is what is meant by bit error rate. Now remember, bit is nothing but either 0 or 1, that is in its binary form. Now why we come across this term, that is bit, is because the name itself tells that the communication is digital communication, what we are dealing with. So when we are specifying it to be digital communication, the signal or the message which is considered is in zeros or ones, that is, it is in digital in nature. So when this is the case, what error will be introduced at the receiving end? That is what we want to specify is, suppose I transmit 0101. Okay, this is the data what I want to transmit. Say I have passed it through the channel. I have passed it through the channel. So at the transmitter, it was 0101. At the receiver also, it should be 0101, which is received. Say you have considered this, you have done all the operation, you have done encoding, you have done modulation, everything. So at the receiver end, what you will be doing is, you'll be doing the reverse of that. So whatever operations you had performed. So in this case, when we say to the reverse process, so the starting this thing was 0101, I should be able to get back the same information 0101. But there are some problems because say as the signal is traveling through the channel, some of the bits might be corrupted. Some of the bits might be corrupted when it is traveling through the channel, or some other problems might arise. So if you have a repetitive regenerator in between, so instead of generating 0, it might generate a 1. So it may be due to some problems which are present. So under such condition, what happens is there is a chance that any one of the bits, say for example, this bit might be identified as 1 at the other end. So transmitted was 0101, but the receiver has identified the data as 0110. So this is where your information theory and coding comes into play. So here what you'll be doing is you'll be say encoding this information. Say you use convolutional encoder or any other encoder, linear block encoders, BCH codes. So use any of those. And at the receiving end, what you're doing is you're trying to identify whether there is any error present. That is called as error detection. And if possible, if you want to correct it, you can correct it depending on which type of coding you are using over there. So therefore you have error correction and error detection codes. So this is where it will be useful uh, at the receiving end. That is your information theory coding concepts, right, will be utilized at the receiving end. So this is what is happening here. So here you got to know that there is one bit in error. So if you're able to identify that, say there is an error in this and but you're not able to correct, then it will be only error detection is possible. But if you want to correct it, then you have to go for error correction codes also. So that is how it goes up. So here, what do I mean by bit error rate is how many bits are error at the receiving end based on how many bits are being sent. So in general, it will be specified in terms of say decimal places or in terms of percentage. For example, if I specify that BR is equal to say 0.02. This in terms of percentage, if I just classify, it is like it is 2% of the bit error rate. It is 2% of the bit error rate. So what does this imply? 0.02. So this implies that if I transmit 100 bits, then there is a probability that 2 bits can be in error. So bit error rate gives us that information. So 0.02 implies that if I'm transmitting say 100 bits, then there is a possibility or probability that 2 bits will be in error out of those 100 bits which are being received at the receiver end. So that is what is happening in this case. So that is what bit error rate specifies. So if I transmit 1000 bits, there is a chance that 20 bits can be erroneous at the receiving end. So it is just a probability estimation which comes over there. So it is left up to the coding methods what you're using in order to detect these and correct this. So that is where your information theory coding comes into play. So now coming down to the next part, that is what is meant by antipodal signal. So antipodal signal is nothing but say you have a signal x of t and you have another signal y of t. We have these two signals, and if these two signals are 180 degrees 180 degrees out of phase 180 degrees out of phase, so such signals are called as antipodal signals. Such signals are called as antipodal signals. So here if I just specify x of t is 180 degrees out of phase with respect to y of t. So this is what I can specify, or it can be the vice versa. Y of t is 180 degrees out of phase with respect to x of t. So in this case, x of t and y of t are called the antipodal signals. So this already I had discussed, but once again we'll just come across these two. So when we speak of communication, it is nothing but transmission of information from the transmitter end to the receiver end. So here, when communication is happening, so the communication can be either analog or it can be digital. It can be analog or it can be digital. Now, how do I classify the communication to be analog or digital? So this classification is dependent on what? This classification is dependent on the message. It is dependent on the message signal. Say if I represent the message signal as m of t. Sorry, if the message signal, if I represent it as, sorry, I cannot represent it directly. It depends on the message signal. If it is a continuous signal, m of t, then what happens? The communication will be analog. It will be analog. That is, the message signal is continuous in nature. If the message signal is digital, that is, say it is 0101 some value over there, okay, so it is in this form, then this gives rise to what we call as digital communication. So if the message signal is analog, we classify the communication to be analog communication. If message signal is digital, then we classify the communication to be digital communication. So based on this, right, again, you have the classification of different aspects. Say, for example, in analog communication, you had studied regarding modulation, right? You had studied modulation. So wherein you had come across AM, FM, PM, so many concepts. So these are all what? This AM, FM, these all are analog modulation techniques. These are all analog modulation techniques. Why? Because the message signal, what we use to change the characteristics of the carrier, is analog in nature. Whereas you will be coming across a few other concepts like ASK, FSK, PSK, so many more, QPSK, DPSK, many more. So that is it is amplitude shift keying, frequency shift keying, phase shift keying. So these all things. So these are actually digital modulation techniques. These are all digital modulation techniques. Why it is called as digital modulation techniques? Because the message signal, what we use to modulate the carrier signal, is digital in nature. Is digital in nature. So in this way, these are the bifurcations what we have. Then last, coming down to the basic concepts, what are the advantages of digital communication system, or in general digital communication? So here we have multiple things. So we'll just go one by one. So as I specified, you can use information theory coding in digital communication. That is, say you have transmitted some information, this part, and here there is an error which is present. So what I can do is I can apply error detecting codes and or error correcting codes. So wherein I'll be able to see whether there is an error occurred. If possible, I'll rectify it. So that is how I can go around. So in digital communication, error detection and or actually correction is also possible, depending on what type of code you are using. And correction, error detection and correction is possible. We can apply error detection and correction in digital communication systems. So apart from this, we have Another one, this thing, that is, we can apply multiplexing. We can apply multiplexing to the digital system, communication system, and it is less complicated as compared to the analog communication system. Even in analog communication, if you just remember, you can use time division multiplexing and other multiplexing techniques. But what happens is, since the data is continuous, you have to take care of a number of things. Here also you have to take care. But what happens is, since the data is in zeros and ones, you can multiplex these information easily, and so because of which multiplexing becomes easy in digital communication systems. Then apart from this, what happens is, you can say encode the digital you can encode the digital information. So what does this lead to? This leads to security of the information. So that is the digital information what you're transmitting. So before transmitting or before applying any concepts to that, you can first encode it. That is, you, instead of encode, I can specify it as encrypting. You can encrypt the digital information. So when you're encrypting, what you're doing is, you are imposing security onto the digital information. So then you perform whatever operation you want to do. So that intermediate, if there is any third party which is present in between, let's say for example, there is a man in the middle attack happening. So if that is the case, then that information is captured unless and until he or she doesn't know that what type of encryption is applied, what is the key factor over there. So we will not be able to analyze what is being exchanged. So under such conditions, you can impose security. So this is the advantage of digital communication system. Now, since we are converting the information from analog to digital, what about storage? So when you consider analog information, right, analog communication system, you will be requiring, say, infinite amount of memory to store the information. But once you're converting the analog information to digital information, what happens is, you can store the information on the memory with less memory requirement, because you're just taking samples. You're not taking our entire part. You're taking the samples, and only those samples can be stored. So this is another advantage of digital communication system. Then we have something called as repetitive. We have repetitive, say, regenerators. We have repetitive regenerators. We have repetitive regenerators. So what does this do is, whenever you are transmitting information on a very long channel, now we have these regenerators which try to get back the information. That is, they try to regenerate what information was sent from the other end. Here you're not actually doing the entire thing what the receiver does. You're just trying to get back the strength of the original information. So suppose you had transmitted 0101, you have encrypted, everything has been done. So in between, what it does is, it tries to get back that information. It tries to get back the information. It is not decoding it. It is, say, this one is encoded as, say, something in this form. So here, and you have modulated, everything has been done. So here, what it tries to do is, it tries to regenerate the same sequence. It is not regenerating this part. It is just regenerating this one. So it doesn't know whether it is encoded, decoded, nothing. So if anybody gets access to this information also, right, they'll not be able to get to know what is the original information. So that is what is happening here. Okay. So repetitive regenerators, what they do is, they try to regenerate the information at the intermediate steps over the channel. So intermediate stages, they try to regenerate that information. So that is what is one possibility. Then what about noise and interference? digital communication systems are more immune more immune to the noise and interference present on the channels. It may be due to the digital circuits. It may be in analog, this thing, what happens is analog circuits generate the noise and interferences. In digital circuits, in digital communication systems, digital circuits impose less noise and interference. Therefore, we specify digital communication system to have to be more immune to the noise and interference as compared to the analog communication system. So another point which comes is jamming. So we have heard about jamming, right? So signal jamming, this can be avoided using digital communication system. But what concepts we use is we use spread spectrum techniques. We use spread spectrum techniques to avoid jamming. We can avoid jamming in digital communication system by using the concept of spread spectrum techniques. So these techniques we'll be discussing in the last part of this subject, that is module 5. So there will come across all these concepts. So what is meant by direct sequence spread spectrum, then frequency spread spectrum, then code division multiple access. So how we can try to avoid these things. So basically what we are trying to do is we are trying to achieve multiple access. That is, many people can use the same channel at the same given time. So that techniques will be looking out for. So these are a few things to name around. So if anything else is there, you can add those points over there. Okay. So these are just a few things to name around. Okay. Which are the advantages of digital communication system. Theater. Sorry, sorry. Sorry. Okay, I'll just restart. Sorry, my microphone was off. Thank you. I wanted to discuss regarding basics of signals and systems. These are nothing but the concepts what you have already studied. So in this part, what I'll be discussing is I'll be discussing regarding how you represent a signal. So what are the operations you perform on that, and just say a few things related to signals. And apart from that, a few standard representation of the signals. Then after that, we'll be continuing with the Fourier transform. So we require a few of the concepts, that is which signals Fourier transform is what, because directly we'll be utilizing it in a few of the derivations in coming forth sessions. So we should remember all these things. So because of that, we have to discuss all these aspects. So here I'm just representing a signal. Say it is x of t. X of t is, say, if I want to- so I'll be considering a signal. So this is for an example of a signal what is represented in its waveform. So now first I have to convert this x of t in its equation form. So x of t, if you just observe what we have, so from here to from here to here, it is nothing but a ramp signal. So if you want to identify say these kind of equations, right, you can apply the concept of y is equal to mx plus c. So this is pertaining to y-axis, this is pertaining to x-axis, and this is the slope of that line, and this is where that line is cutting the x-axis. So in our case, this is the x-axis, this is the y-axis. Okay. So here that I'll leave as an exercise for you. So here I'm just taking one simple example. So from 0 to 1, it is nothing but a ramp signal. So which is represented as t. That is, if t is equal to 0, x of t is equal to 0. If t is equal to 1, x of t is equal to 1. So here it is 1 comma 1 is the coordinate. So and its value is 1. So if it is 0.5, t is equal to 0.5, x of t is also equal to 0.5. So this is how it goes around. So how we write it? 0 lesser equal to t, lesser than 1 or lesser than equal to 1. So this is how it will be represented. But what about the rest one? You apply y is equal to mx plus c. What is the slope? So you apply y1 minus y2 divided by x1 minus x2. You'll be getting the slope. So in when I convert this, right, what I'll be getting is I'll be getting 2 minus t. So this 2 minus t is what? 1 lesser equal to t. It is lesser equal to 2. So it is in this range. Okay. So this is how, so any given waveform, you should be able to first convert it into its equation form, because what happens is you'll be applying integration and other stuff. So if you go for discrete, you'll be applying the summation. So if you go for continuous, you'll be applying the integration. If you go for discrete, you'll be applying the summation part. So if that is the case, right, you should be able to convert this one into its equation form. So this will make these operations easy, or else it becomes tedious. It will be difficult for you to apply these things. So first of all, this is one aspect. Now I want say I want to apply some operations. So what are the operations which are possible? So one operation I can apply is what? I can apply shifting. So the signal x of t, what is there? So I can have it shifted towards right. or I can have it shifted towards left. I can have it in any this thing. So if I have to shift it, then I have to change this accordingly. So I have to say if I want to shift it towards the right, then it will be x of t minus a, where a is any of the parameter depending on where you want to shift the signal. Okay. And if I want to shift it towards the right, left, it is x of t plus some a value. So this again is dependent on where you want to have the shift. Whether you want to have the shift from say 0.5, whether you want to have it from 0.25, whether you want to have it from 0, that is towards the left. So all these things. So where you want to shift it. So this is shifting. So this is shifting. We have another operation wherein we have to apply the scaling factor. Scaling factor. So scaling in the sense, what I want to specify is you can apply amplitude scaling also. Suppose I want to increase the amplitude. So here it is 1. I want to make it 2. Then what I do is I multiply this x of t with 2. So I have say another signal, say y of t, which will be equal to 2 times x of t. So scaling of the amplitude. Now what about scaling in terms of the time? So I have to multiply, say I want to have a signal y of t, which will be scaled in time domain. So here I am scaling the amplitude. Here I am scaling the time domain, scaling the signal in the time domain. So here what happens? So this one, if I represent x of at. So this is how I have represented. Now here we have two things. When we apply scaling in the time domain for x-axis, right? For the signal, right? What happens is if a is greater than 1, then we have one uh, say concept applied to the signal, and when a is less than 1, there is another concept applied. So if a is greater than 1, what happens? We have a compressed version of the signal. We have compression applied. And when a is less than 1, we have expanded version of the signal. We have expanded version of the signal. Suppose you want to, so what is x of 2 times t? So how it will be? So if you just apply that, it will be equal to what? You have to consider x of 2t and see what are the possible values of t. So t can be 0, t can be 1, t can be 2. So other values will be interpolating. So we keep on continuing, and we see what is the value of x of 2t. So at t is equal to 0, it should be equal to x of 0. So what is x of 0? X of 0 is 0. That is this point. When t is equal to 1, x, that is this signal, right? It is equivalent to x of 2. So x of 2. So if you just observe, when it is 1, it is equal to x of 2. X of 2 is what? X of 2 is again 0 here. So when it is 2, it is 2 2s are 4. That is x is equal to 4. That is x of 4. So that is again 0. So what is happening is this signal is appearing in a straight form. So intermediate values also we need to plot. Intermediate values also we need to plot. So what will happen is this will create a compressed version. This will create a compressed version. So in this case, it will be in the range of 0 to 1. It will be in the range of 0 to 1. So here it was in the range of what? 0 to 2. But here, since it gets compressed, right? So if I apply 1 by 2, what is 1 by 2? 1 by 2, when I take t is equal to 1 by 2, it will be equal to x of 1. What is x of 1 value? X of 1 is 1. X of 1 is 1. So here it will be 1. So here this will be 1 by 2. That is, so here it will be a ramp signal from 0 to 0.5, and 0.5 to 1, it will be this part of the signal. But slight equation will be changed. So here you can see that this signal is in the range of 0 to 2. But here you can see that it is in the range of 0 to 1. So it is compressed because this is greater than 1. Now in the similar fashion, if I consider x of 1 by 2t, what happens is this gets expanded. This signal will be expanded. So if I generally realize, it will be in the range of, say, it will be in the range of 0 to 4. 0 to 4. Here it will be 2. So when you substitute in this equation and try to see what is its result, right, you will be getting this one. So in this case, it will be in the range of 0 to 4, but your original signal is in the range of what? 0 to 2. So what has happened? Since this is less than 1, right, the signal is expanded. The signal is expanded. So that is what is happening in this case. So then again, you have what? You have concept of reflection. So here in reflection, what happens? You consider x of minus t. So x of t is your original signal. If you plot x of minus t, right, you will be getting the reflected version of the signal x of t. So you can just plot and see how it appears. So these are just a few concepts to name around. So, and we can have combination of all these. We can combination of, say, I can have a signal such as x of 2t minus 3. So in this, what we are doing is we are scaling the time axis. We are shifting this one. So when you're performing this operation, right, you should know which operation has to be first applied. So first you have to shift it, then you have to scale it as per the rule. You have to shift the original signal. That is, first you have to obtain x of t minus 3, and from this one you have to obtain x of 2t minus 3. So that is how it goes around. So you should know which one to apply. And if you have reflection, again, you have to check out how it goes around. Suppose I have minus 2 over here. So then we have to check out which operations we need to apply first. So first, generally it is shifting, then it is scaling, and then reflection. So these all things, you'll not be going into these depths. You should be knowing which all operations are possible on the signals. So because we'll be referring to them directly in the wherever it comes around. Okay. So this is with respect to the basics of signals and systems. So another part is there. So that I'll continue in the next class. Okay. So wherein we'll discuss some of the standard signals. Say for example, delta of t. So it is equal to what? It is equal to 1 when, say, t is equal to 0, and it is equal to 0 when t is not equal to 0. So this is the impulse function. So such kind of functions we'll be discussing. Then we'll be discussing u of t. Then we have signum. Then we have sync, and we have rectangular functions. So these functions will be coming across regularly in your communication aspects. So because of that, we need to discuss all these things. And then we move forward with the main discussion. That is the Hilbert transform. So once we finish off with this, we'll be discussing some of the concepts related to Fourier transforms. So, and then we move on to Hilbert transform. Okay.